If you haven't dipped into Hammer's gothic vault of nightmares, then you are missing out on some of the most fantastic, campy yet beautifully crafted horror films of all time. Offering a perfect production crew such as director Terence Fisher, producers Anthony Nelson Keyes, James Carreras and screenwriter Jimmy Sangster. Hammer horror dominated the horror genre from the late 50s right up until the early 70s. They breathed new life into classic horror characters such as Count Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy and the Wolfman. Hammer's fantastic formula was irresistible. There was great pacing, action, lashings of vivid technicolor blood, a string of leading ladies affectionately known as Hammer glamour, and the pairing of possibly the two greatest stars of the horror genre, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. What is there not to love? So on that note, we are going to count down to what I consider the top 5 Hammer horror must-watches, not only because they're iconic, but because they're dripping with atmosphere and pure nostalgia. As always, I will be on hand to provide lots of fun behind the scenes facts that you probably didn't know. So buckle up, this is going to be a bloody good one. So starting us off is the film that kicked off the Hammer horror craze, The Curse of Frankenstein. Directed by Terence Fisher, this film was the first to bring the full-blooded gore to the Frankenstein story, and it cemented Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee as the ultimate horror duo. Did you know that Hammer had sent a memo out across London agents for the role of Frankenstein's monster, demanding somebody tall? It landed in the lap of Christopher Lee and Bernard Breslau's. Breslau's minimum fee was about £10 a day, whereas Lee's was £8. And so for the sake of £2, Christopher Lee became an international star and turned that low-budget gig into one of the most iconic monster performances ever. Bernard Breslau, on the other hand, went on to do carry-on films. Rewatchability is off the charts here, with the practical effects of the time, the moody sets, and Cushing's chilling performance that makes this a must-see Halloween viewing. So, what's at number 4, I wonder? Number 4 is Hammer's foray into the occult, and they certainly nailed it. Now, The Devil Rides Out isn't just your standard Hammer horror, it's quite a serious psychological supernatural thriller, with Christopher Lee playing the rare good guy, Duke de Richelieu, who fights to save the soul of his young friends from a satanic cult in 1920s England. Now this one also has a really cool generational conflict theme, with youth being seduced by the devil, and for me this kind of sits as an unintentional companion piece with Rosemary's Baby, which was released the same year. Interesting, isn't it? Did you know that Lee loved this project so much he personally pushed Hammer to adapt Dennis Wheatley's novel of the same name? And get this, Lee actually owned a first edition copy of the book signed by Dennis Wheatley himself. The film offers some truly chilling sequences, especially the scene where the Angel of Death is conjured. This tension builds slowly and feels right for the subject matter, and it remains a bold departure from the usual Hammer formula, plus Lee once again is quite magnetic in this role. After the success of this, Hammer did return to Dennis Wheatley material in the mid-70s with To the Devil a Daughter. But this probably came a little bit too late to have any real impact, especially with The Exorcist and The Omen being at the box office. At number 3, it's Dracula Prince of Darkness. Christopher Lee's second outing as the Count sees him resurrected when a group of travellers spend the night in Castle Dracula. Despite coming almost 10 years after the original Dracula, this was a huge box office success and one that I consider to be one of the very best of the series. Did you know that Dracula didn't have any lines? According to Lee, he didn't want Dracula to have any lines because he hated the dialogue that was written for him. So instead he decided to play Dracula as a pure physical presence, and this works really well. This silent but deadly Count is pure nightmare fuel. Despite missing Peter Cushing, this feels darker in tone to the original, but yet it is another brilliant piece of work from director Terence Fisher. At number 3, it's another Terence Fisher film, and it is The Brides of Dracula. Yes, it's called Dracula, probably to cash in on the recent success of The Horror of Dracula, but neither Christopher Lee or Dracula actually show up in this one at all. Instead, we get an evil vampire aristocrat called Baron Meanster. However, Peter Cushing does return as the heroic Van Helsing. Do not be fooled by the lack of Dracula here, because this is one of Hammer's most atmospheric and haunting films. We follow Marianne, a naive schoolteacher who is invited to spend a night in a castle by a strange woman. When she frees her creepy son from confinement, Marianne unwittingly unleashes a wave of terror. Now this film has become a true cult classic in its own right, and even offers a marvellous brooding gothic period ambience and underlying sexuality and great performances. Did you know that during one scene where Van Helsing cauterizes his neck wound with a hot iron and holy water, Peter Cushing actually performed the effect himself, applying the makeup and fake blood? So this man was so hands-on with his craft, he practically directed his own stunts. Like I said, I love that eerie, dreamy atmosphere, the gorgeous gothic sets, Terence Fisher's direction, and Cushing's brilliant performance as the relentless vampire hunter. Plus, the brides themselves are some of the creepiest and most hypnotic vampires that Hammer ever put to screen. It's a vampire fever dream, and trust me, you'll want to watch it again and again. So we have seen 2 vampire films, 1 Frankenstein and 1 devil pick on this best of Hammer list. So what could possibly be number 1? Okay, I'm gonna put you out of your misery. At number 1, it's got to be the Horror of Dracula. Now for me, this has got to be the quintessential Hammer horror film of all time, and it's once again directed by Terence Fisher, like all of them have been. Just to put into context, this is Hammer's reimagining of the original Dracula story from Bram Stoker. It's high stakes, high energy classic, and does take some liberties with the Stoker original, but it does serve up a memorable cinematic experience that no doubt would have thrilled audiences in the 1950s. Did you know that when Dracula's fangs first appear on screen, audiences in 1958 were shocked? Now Hammer made sure that this was the first film to show Dracula with big bloody fangs, and was a massive departure from the more buttoned up vampire movies of the past. Now the British Board of Film Classification had a few issues with the film, especially the erotic quality of the vampire biting. They also had a cross to bear, no pun intended, with the gore, and removed the excessive blood from Lucy's staking and cut down the disintegration of Dracula in the film's climax. Now these scenes were reinstated for a special BFI restored print which I saw at the cinema a few years ago, and the scenes of Dracula tearing his face off were restored from a Japanese print of the film, which was found by some fan. Now what makes me chuckle here is Peter Cushing almost becoming a vampire when the Count lingers close to bite him, but doesn't get the chance because he wakes up just in time. So Peter Cushing never once played a vampire in a Hammer horror film. This one is endlessly rewatchable because it's got everything for me: romance, terror, suspense, and that unforgettable final battle between Cushing's Van Helsing and Lee's Dracula. Now that scene when Van Helsing jumps on the table and rips down the curtain to let in the sunlight, that is just pure iconic. Well, there you have it, 5 Hammer classics that deserve a place in your must-watch list, and all directed by the legendary Terence Fisher. From silent but deadly Dracula to Curse of Frankenstein and eerie vampire brides, these films have everything a true horror fan would want. If you are new to Hammer and love a slice of vintage fun with hints of camp, then Hammer should be on your viewing list this Halloween. And just because I picked the top 5 doesn't mean to say any of the others aren't amazing. I mean, I also love The Plague of Zombies, Quatermass in the Pit, and Curse of the Werewolf. The list is endless. I was actually considering doing some video essays on some of the Hammer titles. Do let me know what you think of that idea. And remember, I'm a titchy tiny YouTube channel. If you like this content at all and like my presentations, a simple subscribe would be amazing. That way you can show me that you appreciate this content and I can serve some more. So until next time, see you soon.